Since Midjourney's come out, we've all been using a bunch of these different codes to take more control over our art. The problem is they don't all work anymore. Version 4 has come out and certain algorithms have certain codes that work while some don't. So I'm going to go over which codes currently work, which ones don't, so you can know exactly what's available to you when generating art on Midjourney. Now, in order to see what algorithms are available, so you know what I'm referring to, we're going to go to /settings in Discord and take a look. So you can see here, we've got 7 algorithms, which is versions 1 to 4, each one getting more advanced as they go, and then Niji mode, which is more of an anime style mode that allows you to produce more illustration and stylistic images that are sort of closer to an anime or Japanese animated style. Then you've got MJ Test Photo. These are 2 test algorithms that were released between version 3 and 4, which are also very high quality. 4 is the highest quality at the moment. However, the test algorithms produce high resolution images. But what we're going to do now is touch on which codes work for every single algorithm so you know which ones are safe to use straight off the bat. Now we're going to start with some codes, and the way that codes work is you type in your prompt such as a dog on a skateboard, and then you add the code to the end. And the first one we're going to look at is aspect ratio. If I type in --AR, if I type in 1:1, I get a 1:1 image. If I type in 3:2, I get an image that is 3 units wide by 2 units tall. Now this works on every algorithm, but there are different limitations to what actual aspect ratios you can get. If I come back to this image here in the Midjourney documentation, you can see the different algorithms and the shapes they produce. And then of course you can switch the numbers around, so instead of having 4:7 and producing a tall image, you can have 7:4 and produce a wider image. But there are actually different aspect ratios available for each different algorithm. For version 4 and the Niji models, we can go up to 2:1 or 1:2, depending on which orientation you want. Whereas with versions 1, 2, and 3, we can go 5:2 or 2:5 maximum. Whereas the test algorithms, which is test and test P, we can do 3:2 or 2:3. Now the next code that works with absolutely everything is chaos. So if I type in imagine and start my prompt, this time it might be a cat with sunglasses. I type in --chaos. And the way it works is if I give it a chaos of 0, you'll notice that all the images look pretty similar, because what chaos does is it creates variance between the 4 images in the grid. So with 0, there is no chaos applied, so they all have the same look. But now if I paste the exact same prompt in and give it a chaos of 100, you'll notice that the images are actually a lot more different from each other. So if you're looking for a lot more variety in your image grid, try bumping that chaos up to 100 or somewhere between 0 and 100 to play with that and see what you can get. The next command that works on everything is --no, which is negative words. So once again, I'm going to type in the same prompt, cat with sunglasses. I'm going to type in --no at the end. I'm going to put sun. You'll notice there is no instance of the sun in these images, and it's actually sort of like a bit more starry sort of look to it. But if I don't want to include the sun in there, then I simply put --no, and whatever words I place there, it de-emphasizes those words. And while it's not a perfect command, it is great for taking more control over your prompts. Stop is the next code that works with absolutely everything. So if I type in an image of, say, a carnival, and I say --stop at 10, it stops rendering at 10% of the image, which is actually very interesting. So now if I do the exact same prompt again with 100, it produces 100% of the render. So you can go somewhere in the middle with this too. You can type in imagine, stop at 60, and it stops at 60%, which is a little ugly, but it's still a cool tool to play with. The next one that works with all algorithms is seed. So let's say I wanted to produce this image. This is only 60% rendered if you were watching the last tip, but if I actually click on my reaction and add the envelope, if you're not sure, you can just search for the envelope here, just type in envelope, but I simply react with an envelope, and it brings up some information about my prompt, including the images. And it also brings up this seed here. So if I copy this seed, I can type in my prompt, which is imagine a carnival. It doesn't have to be the same prompt, but in this case, we will use the same prompt. I type in -- seed and I paste that number in there and hit enter. So this was our previous image with the seed that we copied. And this is the new one with the exact same seed. You can see it's extremely similar because what seed does is produce the same sort of noise or pattern, whatever it is that Midjourney starts with. It starts with that exact same information, so therefore you tend to get the same images. So by using seed, you can actually just adjust your results a little more closely by using the same starting point when you re-enter that prompt. So now we're going to explore the codes that don't work with every algorithm. And we're going to start with same seed, which works on version 1, 2, 3, as well as test and test P. However, the results with test and test P I haven't found to be as consistent as versions 1, 2, and 3. So if I type in imagine, I put my prompt in there, and instead of seed, I type in same seed, and I include a number. Now this number is 10 digits. So if all I do is simply type in 10 digits, I need to make sure I don't use version 4 or Niji or it won't work. So I type in --v space 3 to use version 3. You'll notice that each image looks pretty much exactly the same because same seed has the same seed number for every image in this picture. So if I actually if I take this exact same prompt, if I paste it in and I just make the seed the same instead of same seed, it now has a bit more variation as opposed to before when we use same seed, which basically looks the same from image to image with a few minor differences. Next is --style. Now with version 4, you can now type in --style for A, for B, or for C. 4C is now the default. What happens if we type in 4A or 4B? Let's start with 4A and also try 4B and of course 4C. And so this is 4C, which produces some of them are a little more photorealistic and a little bit more sort of dramatic. In this instance, 4B does look kind of similar, but it is still a different algorithm, so it'd be good to test that a little bit further. However, switch to 4A, and what we get with 4A is more colorful and sort of illustrative. So that is --style 4C, 4B, or 4A. The next code is image weight, or --IW, which only works with versions 1 to 3, or test and test P. So the way it works is if I take this image and copy the URL, I can go in, imagine, paste the URL in there, and type a prompt. And maybe this time I say cat clown with red eyes or something different. And I type in --IW for image weight, and I give the image weight 1, which is the default, or up to 5. And what that does is it weights the image of priority with the image URL. So if I give it 5, the image is vastly more important when Midjourney is processing the prompt. It will rely on it more to produce the image. If I make the image weight 1, then it will actually rely on it a lot less. But this doesn't work with version 4 or with Niji, so I'm going to type in version 3 to see what results we get. So if you look at the original image and the image produced, it has kept a similar layout with the face in the center taking up most of the frame. It's really heavily relied on the image for information about what to generate. So this time, if I go to Imagine and type in the same thing, but I change the image weight to 1, still making sure I'm using version 3 or version 1 or test, not version 4, not the default algorithm. You can see it's relied a little less on the image, but the image is still a part of that generation. Obviously, when the image is included, it's going to use it to some degree, but backing that image weight back down gives your prompt a bit more command over the final image. The next code is --video, which works on versions 1, 2, and 3, as well as the test algorithms. It does not work with the current version 4 default algorithm. So we simply type in Imagine in our prompt. So we can type in there fast car. I go --video, and because I can't use the default algorithm, I'm going to go version 3 and hit enter. Once our images have been generated, we add a reaction again of the envelope, so we can search for the envelope up here, react with it, and it produces another message. And if you can see here an address to an MP4 file you can download, and also a version of the video right here that you can watch. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if I go back up the top here and I upscale one of these images, I now have my upscaled image. If I react with the envelope again, it now produces just a single image. But keep in mind, this feature can be a little buggy, and I've found that sometimes it simply doesn't work. Simply try again later if it doesn't. Otherwise, it can be cool when it does to produce nifty little videos like this. The next command we're going to look at is quality, which works with versions 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the Niji algorithm. So this time, if I type imagine human face, we can type in --Q for quality, and 1 is the default. But if I put in 0.25, we get an image which renders in a quarter of the time, since 0.25 is a quarter of 1. But we can also boost it up to 2. So if I take the exact same prompt and pop in 2, it spends a bit more time on the initial generation creating that image, but not necessarily the upscale. So it spends more time sort of perfecting some of the detail and getting something better. The highest number you can use with quality is 5, and it'll actually take 5 times as long to render, but give you more detail and quality in your prompt. It works pretty well and produces, again, more detailed results. The next code that doesn't work on every algorithm is stylize, but it works on every algorithm except for the Niji algorithm, but has different levels. So if I type in imagine and I say a funny dog on a unicycle, I type in --stylize and I give it 0. We see we have a funny dog. Stylize is set to 0, so it's taken the prompt very directly and tried to do it exactly as I mentioned it. But what happens if I take that exact same prompt, but I set the stylize to 1000? Midjourney has actually stylized the image more in a way that it prefers. So instead of relying too directly on my prompt, stylize has allowed it to have a little bit more freedom in its interpretation. And although it is still much the same, it is a great way that if things are looking a little bit too sort of uniform or clean cut, you can spread them out a little with stylize. And to give you a quick rundown of stylize, there are different ranges. Version 4 has 0 to 1000, while this should cover versions 1 to 3, but version 3, 625 to 60,000, while a test and test P is 1250 to 5,000. And you can see here the default, which is 100 for version 4, so anything below or above 100 will change the default result. 2500 for the older versions and 2500 for test P. So you can see what the default settings are and how far you can vary it away from that default stylized range. The next code is --creative, which you can only use with the test and the test P models. So the way it works is, say I have this fast car here, which is --test. You can see how it looks. It's pretty straightforward, right? But if I type in imagine --test, but then --creative, I give Midjourney more creativity again in the test algorithm. So we've granted Midjourney more creativity, and you can see, especially on the right image, the extra color and vibrancy it's added, and the way it's stylized things a little more with that creative code, which is a pretty handy tool when using the test or test P algorithms. Next is --tile. So if I type in my prompt and I say --tile, this doesn't work with the current default version 4 or Niji, but I have had it work with versions 3 and the test algorithm. So I'll type in --test and show you what results we get. Now, at first glance, this doesn't look like anything special, but what this does is create an image which can be tiled repetitively and it will seamlessly blend together. So if I upscale this first image, we now right click and we take this link address and we jump onto a website where we can test out the tile. We hit enter and you can see how it scales and repeats. Now I can change the width here to enlarge and decrease, but you can see ultimately it seamlessly repeats, and that is a very handy tool, especially if you're a graphic designer or someone creating patterns you can use on the back of something. The tile feature is incredibly powerful, and you can even use it to create faces and things like that. I do a video on that in my on my channel, so check that out if you're interested. The next we're going to look at is upscaling. Now, in every algorithm, you can upscale. Otherwise, you've got small images. Now, the initial image you get is 512 by 512 pixels, but you'll get different results depending on the algorithm and what options you have. So with this here, straight away, we've got our standard upscales here, but we can change that default upscale by going to /settings, and or when you finish upscaling one of the images, you can choose a light upscale redo, a beta upscale redo, or like I said, we go into /settings, and by default we can have a regular upscale, a light upscale, or the beta upscale depending on what we choose. But it doesn't stop there. If I take this version 3 image, which I upscaled earlier, which was number 3, I can also upscale to max. And I can also remaster, which simply produces the same image in one of the test algorithms. But we have so many different upscale options, and they're all different depending on the version that we're using. So if I head over to the Midjourney documentation to show you what I mean, so we get a little bit of information here. And if I'm using version 4, which is the current default algorithm, you'll notice what we get is 512 by 512 is the starting grid size. Whenever we upscale, we get 1024 by 1024. Until whether it's a regular upscale or a light upscale, if we do the beta upscale, we get 2048 by 2048. However, this is switching to a different sort of algorithm, and the results I've found to be not quite as good. And the light upscale, what it does is it produces an upscale which has less detail, whereas the default upscaler is simply adding as much detail as it can. The beta upscaler is actually increasing the resolution to 2048 by 2048, but not actually bringing much more detail to it as well. There's also a Niji upscaler, so if you're using the Niji model, which is down here, there's 1024 by 1024 as well. So you'll notice all of the images you upscale with version 4 and Niji, and even versions 1 to 3, are 1024 by 1024 by default, until you go to versions 1 to 3 and you max upscale. The max upscaler is actually 1664 by 1664. Keep in mind, changing the aspect ratio does change this as well, but this little table here will give you an idea. Now, if you want to get a much higher resolution, using the test algorithms will automatically produce 2048 by 2048 images. However, I recommend just using your standard upscale, and if you have the money, invest in the Topaz Gigapixel upscaler, because you can produce images that are up to 6 times bigger than normal, and it uses AI to add detail and enlarge, and you can see the results here are pretty insane. And I'll pop a link in the description to a video so you can check that out. Coming back to Midjourney, we've got a few different commands you can pop in there. First one is /settings. I type in /settings. We can change default settings on Midjourney, so that way we don't have to keep on typing in whatever it is we need, but we can also move on to prefer suffix. I type in /prefer suffix space, and it asks me to put in a new value. And what this means, if I type in --AR2 to 1, it will now automatically add that to my prompts. So if I type in imagine a hairy dog and hit enter, you'll see it has automatically added AR2 to 1. If I want to remove that suffix, I type in prefer suffix and then I hit enter and enter again with nothing there, and the suffix is now removed. Now I can also set up custom codes by typing in /prefer option set. I give the option set a name, maybe I call it art2. Although I click just outside this box, type in value : and then I can give it some custom commands such as --AR. I can give it a whole bunch of values, and because I have art2 here, I hit enter. And now when I create my next prompt, I can type in --art2. And you'll notice it's added my options to the end of the prompt, which is pretty cool. And now if I want to remove that, I go /prefer option set art2, hit enter, and you'll see the custom option is now removed. You can also see which prefer options are available. You can go to prefer option list, hit enter, and it will show I have wallpaper and YT as options I can use. The next feature you can use is multi-prompts, which work with versions 1, 2, 3, 4, and Niji, but not the test modes. I type in imagine, I've done a video on this recently, but I type in imagine hot dog. You'll see here my prompt is hot dog, and I've gotten pictures of mostly of hot dogs. But what if I wanted a dog that was simply hot? I type in / imagine hot : dog, and that will separate the two words. And now you can see we have hot with 2 colons and dog, and the prompt has been interpreted completely differently because it sees the words hot and dog as 2 different things as opposed to combining them into one phrase, hot dog. So that's actually a very cool feature for taking more control over your prompts. But you can now actually add numbers. So what this becomes what is known as prompt weight or word weight. I can actually go in, type in imagine, I type in hot : 5 and dog : 1. So what this has done is made the word hot 5 times more important than the word dog, because by using numbers from 1 to 5 or even 0, I can actually emphasize some words more than others. So this is called prompt weight or word weight. So let's see what it does. Now you see it's emphasized the word hot with heat, and maybe a little controversial, but you get the idea. The dog is almost absent because it has been de-emphasized in this prompt because I gave it such a low word weight. So I hope that's cleared things up for you as to what codes and commands are really useful with Midjourney with the current and old algorithms. So if you found that useful, please consider giving the video a like. Otherwise, if you want more Midjourney content, head to my channel, check it out. I've got a ton of videos on there. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day. I'll see you next time.